It begins in the quiet moments no one ever records. A small child runs into the living room, holding a drawing with the sun so bright it almost breaks the crayon. They hold it up, their eyes wide with the hope of being seen. But the parent's gaze is fixed on a screen, or on a sibling, or on a worry too heavy to set down. A simple, distracted, "That's nice, honey," is all they get. The drawing is placed on the table, and the child walks away, a little of their light dimmed. They don't know it yet, but they've just learned one of life's quietest and most brutal lessons. You are not the center of this world, not even for a moment. This is the silent story of the child who was never a priority. It's not a story of loud abuse or dramatic neglect. There are no villains here, no monsters hiding in the shadows. There is only absence. The absence of focused attention. The absence of mirrored joy. The absence of feeling like your existence is the most important thing in the room, if only for a few sacred seconds. This child grows up in a home that isn't empty of love, but where the love is always directed elsewhere, to a more demanding sibling, a struggling parent, a career, a crisis, and so they learn to live on the sidelines of their own life. The psychology of this child is a study in invisibility. They learn to make themselves small, to have needs that are easy to meet, to express feelings that don't take up too much space. They learn that their role is to be easy, to be quiet, to not be a problem. In a family system, every member finds a role, and the child who is not a priority becomes the background character, the one who keeps the story moving without ever being the hero. They learn to swallow their disappointments, to celebrate their own victories in silence, and to comfort themselves when no one else will. The world sees this and calls it maturity. They say, "You're so independent, you're so low maintenance, you're such an old soul." But what they're praising isn't strength, it's a scar. It's the result of a child who learned too early that asking for more would only lead to the quiet heartbreak of being turned away. As this child grows into an adult, these survival strategies don't just disappear. They become the very architecture of their personality. You might recognize them. They are the person who apologizes for everything, as if their very presence is an inconvenience. They are the friend who is an incredible listener, but never shares their own struggles, because deep down they believe no one really wants to hear them. They are the partner who gives and gives, who overfunctions and fixes everything, secretly hoping that if they are useful enough, maybe this time they won't be overlooked. This is where the pattern becomes so painful. The child who was never a priority grows into an adult who doesn't know how to take up space. The thought of asking for help feels like a monumental burden. Admitting they are not okay feels like a confession of failure. Their entire sense of worth has been unconsciously tied to how little they need, how much they can handle alone. They become fiercely independent, not out of choice, but out of necessity. Their independence is a fortress they built to protect the small child inside who is still waiting for someone to come and find them. In relationships, this pattern is tragic. They are often drawn to people who are emotionally unavailable, people who need fixing, people who, in their own way, will also fail to make them a priority. It feels familiar. The brain doesn't seek happiness, it seeks what it knows. And for them, love has always been a quiet negotiation for space, a desperate hope to be chosen, a feeling of not quite being enough. They will bend themselves into shapes that don't fit, silence their own needs, and call it love. But it's not love. It's the reenactment of a childhood where they learned their value was in their ability to not get in the way. Psychologically, this is rooted in attachment theory. When a child's bids for attention are consistently ignored or minimized, they develop an insecure attachment style. Their nervous system learns that connection is unpredictable. So, as adults, even when someone offers them genuine, unconditional love, it can feel foreign, even suspicious. A compliment is met with deflection. A gesture of care is met with the quiet question, "What do you want from me?" They cannot relax into being loved because they have never known love without an agenda, without the need to perform. And here is the deepest, most invisible cost. They learn to make themselves a low priority in their own lives. They will work through exhaustion, ignore their own health, and postpone their own dreams to make room for everyone else's. Self-neglect doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like the natural order of things. The idea of putting themselves first feels selfish, wrong, even dangerous, because the child within still whispers, if you ask for too much, you will be left with nothing at all. So what happens to that child? They live inside the adult, quietly pulling the strings. They are the reason you feel a pang of guilt when you rest. They are the reason you downplay your own achievements. They are the reason you feel a deep, unshakable loneliness even when you're in a room full of people. It's the loneliness of never having been someone's son, of always being a distant planet in their orbit. But the story doesn't have to end there. Healing begins with the most radical act of all for a person who has spent a lifetime being invisible, the act of seeing yourself. It starts with a quiet revolution, a whisper that grows into a voice. The whisper says, "My needs matter. My feelings are valid. I am allowed to be a priority." At first, this voice feels like a stranger. It feels wrong. But healing is the process of making that stranger's voice your own. It means learning to say no without a long apology. It means asking for what you want, even if your voice shakes. It means allowing someone to take care of you and resisting the urge to immediately pay them back. It is the slow, uncomfortable, and beautiful process of unlearning the art of disappearing. You have to grieve. You have to grieve the childhood where you weren't the star, where your light was never fully celebrated. You have to feel the anger for all the times your needs were dismissed, and you have to sit with the sadness of knowing you can never go back and get what you were denied. But in that grief, you find freedom. You realize that you are no longer that powerless child. You are an adult who can give yourself the attention you never received. You can become your own priority. You can learn to celebrate your own drawings, to listen to your own stories, to hold yourself with the tenderness you always craved. This is the work of reparenting. It is looking at the invisible child within you and finally saying the words they've been waiting a lifetime to hear. I see you. You are important to me. You don't have to earn your place here. You already belong. And when you start to live this way, something magical happens. The world around you begins to shift. You stop attracting people who overlook you because your energy no longer says, "I am secondary." You start building relationships based on mutual care, not self-sacrifice. You begin to walk through the world not as an apology, but as a presence. You realize that the whole time you were trying to be small enough to be loved, the real path was to become big enough to love yourself. The ache may never disappear completely. There will be days when the old feeling of invisibility returns. But now you will know what to do. You will know how to turn toward that feeling with compassion, to hold that inner child's hand, and to remind them that they are no longer on the sidelines. They are, at last, the center of their own story. And in that quiet, steady act of choosing yourself again and again, you finally find the one thing you are always searching for, a place where you are and always will be the priority.